We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
With massive spending bills on the horizon and a seemingly endless urge to spend taxpayer dollars, the federal government appears to have roundly rejected the adage of, "It's the economy, stupid," when it comes to seeking votes in 2022. Now, has Joe Biden got a fiscal plan up his sleeve for his party to hold on to power in the upper and lower chambers? Or is he banking on wokeness over wages? To help us unravel all this is Liberty Nation's economic correspondent and author of The War on Cash, Andrew Moran. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
So, Andrew, what's the latest financial, economic, and job figures? And what kind of impact are they having on the average American?
Yeah, so the latest numbers today for measuring the labor market would be the initial jobless claims data for the second consecutive week. The number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits topped 400,000. Before the pandemic. To put this into perspective, the figure was around 200,000 a week, so it's more than double. But at the same time, it is better than it was at the height of the pandemic, which was around 700,000 or 800,000 a week. So at the same time, the upside is that the number of job openings in the United States today is at an all-time high. So anyone terminated from their position would probably have a treasure trove of options at their disposal. But of course, at the same time, you had this issue where people are not seeking those jobs because they're comfortable with those federal benefits they're getting from Uncle Biden. So whether or not they seek those positions is a different story. And for a broader gouge of the economy, some of the recent measurements have been decent. You have the producer price indexes are beating expectations. The final GDP reading came out this morning for the first quarter, and it was, it matched expectations. And the durable goods orders have held steady. So of all these numbers, of course, for the average American, the jobs data is the most important one. The economy is coming out of this pandemic, so it's better to take a more of a long-term wait-and-see approach to see what's going on as opposed to month over month. But this is U.S. politics, so we don't really focus on the long-term, focus on what's best for tomorrow's vote.
Apples today, apples tomorrow. We'll be coming back to those job figures, I think, later on, Andrew. I just want to know, what of the ever-present specter of inflation? Now, I've heard from different sources within the government that A, there will be no inflation, B, there will be transitory inflation, or C, that's just short-lived inflation, I guess, or C, that inflation is about to go through the roof. Now, they can't all be true. What's your analysis?
Yeah. I wrote about this recently with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. She finally conceded that, inflation is going to be here until next year. So I really enjoyed this evolution of everyone's take on inflation. As you mentioned, it started from, saying, when they passed the CARES Act and when the Fed launched this unlimited quantitative easing push, it went from, there's not going to be any inflation going on. What are you crazy? And then it went to, inflation could be here, but it's going to be brief and it's going to be, small. And then it says, inflation is going to be here, but if it's high, it's going to be short-lived. And now it's, inflation is going to be here, and it's going to be until 2022, and it's going to be higher, but after that, it's probably going to come down. So it's been mind-numbing to see the constant flip. Liberty Nation, we've been reporting since the start of the pandemic about the inflation tsunami that would be coming, and lo and behold, it's starting to make tidal waves in the United States. And this happens when you create 1/4 of all U.S. dollars ever printed. It's inevitable that you get these inflation numbers that you're seeing, and there's more to come. At the same time, to give the Federal Reserve, I guess, some credit, there are other factors at play here. You have the shrinking supplies like soybean and corn. You have global simultaneous demand across the globe, and then you have this, you have limited inventories as it is. But these inflation measurements that the government's giving you, they pale in comparison to what's really going on. And when you really dive into, I think it's the Bureau of Labor Statistics data or the Census Bureau data, and you see the things that people need, they're the ones that are becoming really expensive: meat, shelter, whatever the case. The things that people need to go day to day. Those prices are skyrocketing 5, 6, 10%. I think I saw eggs the other day. I think it's up 12%. So, inflation, that's gonna be the main theme of the Biden administration. As soon as he gets in office, inflation skyrocketing. Now, would it have been better if it was former President Trump? Of course not, because he presided over such massive spending. QE started under him, so it would have been any different under Trump. But since it's Biden, he's the president. Everyone thinks that the president is the commander of the economy. It falls at his feet.
Well, that's something I want to dig a little bit deeper into here, Andrew, politically. So the 2022 midterms, they're all important for the Democratic Party, obviously, especially with the historical regularity but bar several notable exceptions with which the leading party tends to lose seats. So they have razor-thin majorities in both chambers right now that could easily fall to the Republicans next year. Now, why do you think that the party has swept away the wisdom of "it's the economy, stupid" when it comes to how they think people will vote?
Well, I think it's because they have an abysmal record on the economy. So, perhaps they don't want to put up too much of a spotlight on their record, or maybe just members of the Democratic Party, as well as the Republican Party, of course, they're ignorant of economics. Or maybe there's, as you said in your intro, they're just too woke and they're fixated on gender pronouns, or perhaps they're still distraught from the January 6th event. So who knows what playbook they're running from. The likely scenario is that they know these policies put forward will only do more harm than good. They might offer a short-term remedy. You saw that with the stimulus checks, provided huge retail sales boost, personal spending jumped. And then when the stimulus checks were exhausted, retail sales went down, personal spending went down. So these are all just short-term fixes to, and then so long-term, it's not going to be good of what's going on, especially as we mentioned earlier with the inflation.
Yeah, I want to jump into that quickly a little bit, Andrew, if I may. Okay. So I can see the logic of focusing away from the economy when people are receiving numerous stimulus checks and extra benefits. But President Biden recently tweeted that, and I'm going to quote it here for you. "Today's job report shows that historic progress for American families and the American economy. We added 559,000 jobs in May, created a record 2 million jobs in our first 4 months, and unemployment is at its lowest level since the pandemic started." Now, really, this sounds like supremely positive news, but is the devil in the detail?
Yeah, well, of course, this is what happens when you reopen the economy. Of course, you're going to have, great job creation or better job numbers than you had, at the height of the public health crisis. So if you open the economy, of course, people are going to go back to their jobs, but people are going to start participating in the economy. So it's not that it's some, magical wisdom of Keynesian economics or Bidenomics or, the genius of Kamala Harris. It's just you open the economy, you're going to have these numbers. But, when you start diving deeper into numbers, that's when you have some sort of, confusion going on, because employment is still way below of what it was before the pandemic. You still have think of something like 10 million fewer Americans are still, are employed than they were before the pandemic. Personal spending has been on the decline since as I noted, the stimulus checks were exhausted. And then not to mention, of course, the surging costs of living. I think that's going to be the major point that the Republicans are going to emphasize on heading into the midterm elections, because people worry about their pocketbook. No matter how much you focus on he, he, her, whatever those gender pronouns are, people care more about the dollar bills in their pockets and how much they're paying at the supermarket for their meat and eggs. And the quieter the party is on the economy, the better chance the media wing of the Democratic Party will pay less attention to it, thus deceiving a considerable portion of voters who think, the economy is good, it's going okay, it was all because of Trump. Now Biden here, it's been 100 and something days since he's been president, so he's doing his best to do it. But then of course, or to fix it, and then reality steps in. Come voting day, people can say, well, the Democrats aren't that great on the economy. When Trump was president before the pandemic, we had all these jobs and we had all this economic prosperity. So maybe I should vote for the Republicans.
Well, that brings us nicely on to our last question, Andrew. I'm going to ask you to either play Cassandra and or Nostradamus, whichever you prefer. How do you see the economy for Americans in the run-up to 2022?
Well, I'm sure if you watch CNBC or Bloomberg, you probably hate that word inflation by now, because that's what everyone seems to be talking about. But the inflationary economy is here. That's going to be the defining moment or defining economic development for President Biden. The cost of everything that people need will climb higher in 2022 or the rest of the year and in 2022. The stock market will probably continue to climb, because of the accommodative monetary policy. So interest rates at record lows. You still have money printing going on. You have the bond buying program unlikely to subside anytime soon. The labor market will probably continue to expand, but but at a slower pace. But I think that a good example of what's going to happen with Biden what happened to Obama when he became president and the post-recession recovery is that Biden is probably going to preside over a slow economic recovery. If you remember during the Obama days, the thing is by the time he left office, he had the second or third slowest economic recovery in the nation's history following a recession. So, morning in Biden's America? I think not.
Andrew Moran, peering into the crystal ball of economic America. Thank you very much.
you for having me.
And we'll be back after this break with Liberty Nation Radio. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Who are we? We are Americans that believe in liberty. We are a project of the nonprofit One Generation Away. We are patriots who apply the founding principles to the issues of today.
And they keep moving the goalposts on us.
We are educators and commentators who love America and the Constitution. Who are we? We are Liberty Nation.